Hey everybody, I'm Scott Weichel. You are listening to the original My Kind of Country right here on MKOCRadio.com. Back in the 1980s, a very good friend of mine, who turns out is a mutual friend of my guest tonight, turned me on to his music, and he handed me a stack of 45s from some guy in Texas by the name of Jerry Naill. And I'd never heard of him, and I came home and I put one of those records on my turntable. The song was called Mr. Whiskey. And I'm here to tell you, folks, it's one of the greatest records I've ever heard in my life, one of the most pure voices. And it's taken many, many years, 30 years, to finally get in touch with this man. I've tried several avenues. And oddly enough, it came from a gentleman in Sweden whose name is Eric, who is friends with Jerry. And he was kind enough to get us in touch. And I'm really happy to have him on the show today. And we're going to talk about his music and play a whole bunch of it for you. It's my honor to welcome Jerry Naill to My Kind of Country. Jerry, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fine, and it's a pleasure speaking with you finally.
Well, man, it's truly an honor. This is a kind of a self-serving interview for me because if nobody else listens to it in the world, I'm going to love it forever. But I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to love it. So,
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you had a very interesting beginning in your career. You started a movie alongside of Tex Ritter, and tell me a little bit about your early beginnings in country music.
Well, it was kind of an accident. I was doing a prose reading for the high school, and we went out to Katy, Texas, and had all this tent set up and cars everywhere. And I said, "What's going on over there?" And they said, "Well, they're filming a movie." And I said, "Well, I'll walk over and see what's going on." And as I walked over between the tents by the corral there, this fella come around the corner holding a guitar. And I looked at him. I said, "Well, I play one of them too." He said, "You do?" And I was very small for my age, and he just picked me up, set me on the fence, and I started playing guitar. Next thing I know, I was in the movie.
No kidding. What year was that, Jerry?
I think it was 59.
Okay. And the movie was it starred Tex Ritter, and it was the name of it. I'm losing my sheet. Tomboy and the Champ. Yeah.
Yeah, Tomboy and the Champ.
Wow, I saw a little clip of that on YouTube. That's pretty cool. Now, you had a very distinct honor of being the first person to record a Willie Nelson written song.
Yeah, I didn't know it at the time. It was 45 years later when I found out about that. But Willie was working for Paul Buskirk, who was also in the movie playing guitar at his music store in Pasadena. And he was sending me songs to the studio every night because we did the soundtrack for the movie. I did 6 songs on the soundtrack. And so 45 years later, I found out that one of them was, one of them was written by Willie. So I was blown away because I'd known Willie all my life, didn't know that about him. So I went up and asked Willie about 90 days later, opened for him at the Hall of Fame, and I asked him, I said, "Who cut your first song?" He said, "Billy Walker, 1961, Up All the Pieces." No, it wasn't that. What was it? I can't even remember now.
Funny how time slips away.
Huh?
Funny how time slips away.
Yeah. I don't remember which one it was. Now, anyway, I said, "No." I said, "Jerry Naill, 1959, Love Valley," and I started singing. He jumped in there and started doing harmony with him. When I finished, I turned my 52 Martin over, and I said, "Willie, you're the only one that's ever going to sign this guitar." And he looked at it, and he said, "Jerry, this is a really old guitar." He said, "It's going to ruin the value of it." And I looked at him straight in the eye. I said, "Only as long as you're alive." He whooped that signature on me.
That's pretty cool. Do you still have that guitar?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great. What a great memory that is. So that's a pretty cool start and piece of country music history there, no doubt about it. And
Yeah, but actually, it wasn't Tex Ritter. It was Rex Allen.
oh, Rex Allen, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I shared the soundtrack.
Yep, I saw that too, and I don't know why I said Tex Ritter. Rex Allen, that's right. Rex Allen Jr. is going to be on my show next week. He'll kill me for getting that wrong.
Yeah. Well, he's a great man.
That 45 is I understand you don't have a copy, so folks, if you see that out there anywhere, let me know, and we'll get it in to Jerry's hands. It's on the Hi-Fi Club label. It's kind of a pink label, and it's Tomboy 60520, Love Valley by Jerry Naill. So if you find one, get it to me, folks, and I'll get it into Jerry's hands. I think you ought to have a copy of that.
I'd love to hear it again. However, you got to understand, when I got my driver's license, I was 5 foot tall and weighed 80 pounds, so my voice hadn't fully developed back then yet. What I'm saying.
I was listening to some of your early recordings on Lori on that label, and you're right. You had a little bit of a higher tenor voice at that time, and then it kind of deepened as the years went by. But that happens to most singers, I think, as they progress with their careers.
I think it's playing on nightclubs, all that smoke and stuff going on. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So after that point, when did you start recording country music?
Well, I started recording it probably at the age of about 20, 21. And, of course, you didn't have much luck down here in Texas because if you weren't on a major label, they wouldn't play your stuff. So I had to fight that for a few years, and then I got with the Wilburn Brothers out of Nashville, and Doyle cut my first hit called Texas Dance Hall Girl. And it was one of those things that we were playing the Elks Lodge and the VFWs, and I went from $300 a night to $3,000 overnight. So
wow.
It was a good deal, but never could land a major record because at that time Nashville was swinging away from true country. Ernest Tubb didn't have a contract, or didn't have one. So I was just an outsider basically at that point.
Yeah, that happened to a lot of great artists. I've got a lot of independent stuff that's just absolutely killer. And, some of these people kind of fell through the cracks. But you have maintained a pretty darn good following. You're kind of a legend in Texas. Everybody knows who you are, and you've performed with some of the greatest names down there.
Well, I was lucky. I was very fortunate to work a lot with George Jones fronting him, opening acts, and Conway and people like that.
Absolutely.
It was a great pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, you've a couple of songs that are just my very favorites. One is Mr. Whiskey, and her cheating heart made a drunken fool of me. What a great line! You wrote that along with Dave Kirby, is that right?
Danny Kirby.
Danny Kirby. Okay.
Danny Kirby, yes, and Judy O'Consky. We were going to a job in Beaumont, and I was trying to write, and it was raining and storming. Finally, we just pulled over. But Judy was writing the words down because me and Danny were putting the thing together, so it just accidentally fell out as a three-writer deal.
Well, that's a great song. And tell me about Mr. Whiskey. That's on your Mean, Bad, and Ugly album.
Mr. Whiskey was written for, I guess, my closest friend in Cameron, Texas, where I raised my kids. And he always had a drinking problem. And one night I just sat down and poured it out, and that's where Mr. Whiskey came from.
I've got that 45 here, man. I'll tell you that. I think that was the first song that I heard you sing, and you had me hooked from there. You had a record label called Naill Records.
Yeah, that's about original as you can get. I couldn't get a major label.
Well, it's a pretty major record, I'll tell you that, without a doubt. And your album, Mean, Bad, and Ugly, is available on cdbaby.com, and folks can go there and download all the songs from that album. And more recently, you recorded a patriotic song called We Need You Again. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I just had a rude awakening here, what was going on. I thought, being 71 years old now, but in America, I saw basically everything going south. And it's because the morals of the people, they've just gone downhill. And what we really needed back in this country was the basics of religion, believing in something besides yourself, is what I'm saying. And I thought it'd be a good time for the good Lord to lay his hand on us. Amen
to that. No doubt about it. So as you progressed along in recording and touring and stuff like that, what were some of the highlights and some of the things that you did during that time that kind of stand out in your memory?
Oh, I tell you what, there's so many of them. I've been told so many times to write a book, but I'm not a writer, book writer anyway. But I've had such a great time on the road with friends. It would be a long book, is what I'm telling you.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of good stories out there. Now, are you still?
Some of them I can't tell.
I'm sure. Yeah, we've all got some of those, I think.
Yeah.
Tell me about the song 1100 Springs.
Well, a friend of mine up in Cameron, his name was Jimmy Adams, and he came to me with a song about like that. And anyway, I started on it, and it just is one of them deals that, Texas is not only a great state, it's kind of a state of mind. And that's how that song developed, just with all my travels throughout the state, people I've met, and there again, we've got a different way of life here, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Now, didn't Johnny Bush also record a version of that song?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
That was in 1990.
Okay. That's a good song. We'll have to pull out his version and play that too. And another one on the album Mean, Bad, and Ugly is Ain't It Funny We Got Over You Know Who.
Yeah. That's my warped sense of humor, I guess. Sometimes I write some crazy stuff. But, yeah, actually, that song just fell out one day. It's one of them things that just fell out.
Well,
I had to put it on paper right then. Yeah.
You've got some good hook lines in your songs. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, on that particular record there, I'm actually playing fiddle on that, and I have to give credit to Frenchie Burt because Frenchie gave me my first fiddle lesson, and I was taking him to Arlington, Texas, to play the Silver Saddle on my bus. I was off that weekend, and they had a gig up there, so he gave me my first fiddle lesson on the way up there. And then shortly after that, I had an old brown fiddle, and shortly after that, I opened for Buck Owens, and Don Rich was playing up there in Trinity, and he was promoting those Marcus Berry fiddles. So I went up to Don when the gig was over, and I said, I think I want one of those green fiddles. And he said, okay, so I give him $350, and he said, I'll mail one to you. So I get home, and I'm waiting for that fiddle to come in. Anyway, I saw Frenchie again, and I told him I got a green fiddle coming, and he said, well, Jerry, just bring your old brown one down here. When it hears me play, it'll turn green within me. So when I got the fiddle in, Don had a note in there and said, Jerry, we were out of green, but here's a red one. So I went back to Frenchie, and I said, I brought my fiddle with me. I said, they were out of green, but I got a red one. He said, see, it's embarrassed already.
I like that.
I've been playing a red fiddle for 30, 40 years, something like that.
Wow. Well, I know Don Rich was a good fiddle player too. He's obviously well known for his Telecaster playing, but he was a good fiddle player too.
Well, see, I respect him for both of them, but I was really knocked out by his harmony. And if you'll notice on a lot of my records, I'm doing my own harmony. It's a closer vibration, I guess you would say, or vocal, or whatever.
I had that discussion with Justin Trevino a while back too, and there's something about that sound that you get when you when you double your own voice or you do your own harmonies, and it's a really cool sound. It's not done a lot these days, and I think it's something that needs to come back again.
Well, it seemed like it was. I don't know how to explain it. It seemed like it was whole. There wasn't much separation in the sound.
Yeah. What are some of your biggest musical influences? Some of your favorites?
Well, Jones, one of my all-time favorites. Of course, I tried not to drink as much as he did, but he was he was a blast to be around. Conway was another one. The oldies but goodies, man. They influenced everybody in this state.
Amen to that.
I would say that they were probably my favorite.
Well, there's been a kind of a pendulum swing back around to the more traditional country sound, and the music I'm playing on my show. I think the internet has had a lot to do with that because people are able to go and find this music where it's not being played on the mainstream radio anymore, and people get tired of that stuff and they want to hear this stuff. And
well, the difference is everything you hear on the radio is bought and paid for to play.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get anything played. It was hard to get anything played even by 1980. If you wasn't on a major label, you didn't get airplay.
Yeah. Well, there seems to be a lot of independent artists out there that are doing real well with the the outlets like what we're doing, and they're getting the music heard. We're drawing listeners from all over the world. So this is a good way to get that music out to them. You don't necessarily have to be a major label player these days to get your music heard.
Well, we need more Jeff Woolsey's and Jake Hookers is what we need because they're two fantastic acts.
Yeah, Jeff Woolsey was on my show a while back, and he's a big fan of yours. I know he's recorded one of your songs at least, and he speaks very highly of you.
Actually, we're fixing to write one together, and we were supposed to get together within the last 2 weeks, but we had this little problem with being flooded, so we didn't get together. Every highway around Houston was closed.
Yeah, well, we heard about that up here. Were you affected? You're in Conroe, Texas, right?
Yeah, we're in Conroe, which was the hub for the Chinook Huey combination helicopters supplying supplies out to everybody. And it was every day the rescue helicopter flying over. They were actually plucking people off the roofs in the creek area around me. But it was only 24 hours that I couldn't get out of the house because the roads were flooded. But downstream, I've still got relatives down there that are still underwater.
Wow. I know it's been it just hung right there. I think it's probably one of the worst things that's ever happened for Texas as far as weather goes.
It absolutely is in my 71 years because I rode out Carver with 145 mile an hour winds. I've never seen anything like this.
Man, are you from Texas originally?
Yes, sir. Born and raised right here.
All right, fantastic. Are you still writing songs, and do you have any plans to do any recording at some point?
Eric and I have discussed that, and yes, I've got a song on hold right now. Like I said, I'm waiting on Jeff to get with me because I've told Jeff that we need to get together and get you a step up there. You need to be a writer because he sings way too good, and he's got too many good ideas to let it go to waste. But I've got one in the basket. It's called Wild Wyoming Woman, and we're fixing to try to put that down on paper.
Oh, that's great. Well, I know after my listeners are listening to some of your music here today, they're going to want to hear more from you. And you can get Jerry's album Mean, Bad, and Ugly at cdbaby.com, as well as the single We Need You Again. The patriotic song is there. And I sure hope you put some more music out. I'd love to hear more from you, Jerry.
Well, I appreciate it. We're going to try to do that. I just got to get kind of up and running since I hadn't done this in a few years,
Absolutely. Well, you've still got a hellacious voice. I watched some video clips of you with Justin Trevino and Daryl McCall, and you're singing just as good as ever, if not better.
Well, I have my good days and bad ones.
Don't we all?
Yeah, we do.
Well, I hope that we can stay in touch, and if you do get some new stuff out there, I'd love to get it out there to my listeners.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate everybody listening to your show.
All right. Well, we are going to play just a whole bunch of songs from Jerry right now. And, folks, again, I want you to visit cdbaby.com. Jerry Naill, Mean, Bad, and Ugly is the name of the album. We'll put that information on our Facebook page. And
by the way, I want to tell you one thing on Mean, Bad, and Ugly. I discussed that I had cancer 30 years ago, and that the reason why I recorded that album was because that was the last 10 songs I had written, and I didn't want to. They told me I was terminal, so I didn't want to let them slip away before I recorded them. So it's a pretty special album.
Absolutely, it's a great album, start to finish. There's as they say, it's all killer, no filler on this album. I think I've played every single song on my show and will continue to do so, in addition to the 45s. Folks, if you're ever shopping in a record store and you're flipping through 45s, look for Jerry Naill because, man, I'll tell you what, it's good, solid country music, and you're going to hear that here in just a few minutes. Jerry, it's been a true honor getting to talk with you and get to know you a little bit, and I want to thank you so much for taking time to be on my show.
Well, I want to thank Eric for getting us together, and I want to thank you because we've got friends that we actually know some of each other, so it's good. We've got mutual friends out there.
Absolutely, yes. Eric, thank you so much. I know he'll be listening, and we really do appreciate it. It's just been a true pleasure for me to be able to talk to you, Jerry. I'm a big fan, and will continue to be.
Well, it was certainly my pleasure, and I appreciate your interview.
All right, that is Jerry Naill right here on My Kind of Country. I want you to sit back and listen to some fabulous country music from this man, folks, as we continue with My Kind of Country right here on MKOCRadio.com.